Rick and Michonne had just arrived at the junkyard when a horde of zombies closed in behind them. Rick cursed under his breath. Trying to escape is too late. Can only desperately kill a road. Rick and Michonne killed zombies while moving towards the inside. They couldn't be held back by the zombies or they would only die. But ahead, a dozen more zombies approached them. Rick was perplexed by the situation. How had the scavengers been wiped out? In a dire moment, Michonne escaped by leading Rick up a rubbish heap. Behind them, a woman in a white dress observed them. It was Jadis, the sole survivor. Jadis approached them and greeted them. She explained that the saviors had attacked, her voice quivering with tears. Rick didn't want to listen to Jadis crying here and said directly, "This is all your fault. Your team became like this because of you." He took a car door, bending its steel to make an improvised shield. Michonne wonders what Rick is doing. Rick explains that Jadis is useless to them and that they need to make a path with the shield. Hearing this, Jadis stood up and found a chair to hold in her hands. Jadis asks Rick to get her out of here. Just get her away from the zombies. Rick, however, refused her plea, stating that she had to face the consequences of her actions. Using their makeshift shields, Rick led the way, cutting through the zombies. Michonne guarded their rear, and together, they reached the entrance. At this moment, Jadis also rushes forward.
Wait! Please, just let me get out!
Maybe this is karma. The scavengers' betrayal and treacherous actions almost led to the death of everyone in the Alexandria safe zone. Jadis had no way to escape but to return inside. After a while, Jadis sat on a stool and hit the ground with a stick. The zombies followed the sound and came towards her. Jadis doesn't want to kill herself, but there's a meat grinder here. Jadis flipped the switch and the zombies just fell in one by one and became a pile of mincemeat. Jadis was in a trance. Looking at the familiar faces, she couldn't help but reflect on whether she had really caused them to die. Maybe if she had worked with Alexandria's safe zone to kill Negan the first time, this wouldn't have happened. Shortly after, scenes of the massacre resurfaced in Jadis' mind. She couldn't let this go. She wanted revenge. Meanwhile, Rick's car had pulled over to the side of the road. He hadn't killed Jadis. Remembering his son's words, Rick then took up the letter Carl had left behind. He needed some time to gather his thoughts. Rick goes outside alone and looks at his son's letter, but hesitates to open it. He then switched to the second letter, the one addressed to Negan. Curiosity piqued. Rick skimmed its contents. Understanding Carl's intentions, Rick stood in contemplation for a long while, ultimately deciding to share the letter's contents with Negan.
Get me Negan.
Inside the Savior's base, Simon had just come back from the junkyard. He was a bit nervous. Negan was very concerned about human resources. He couldn't let him know that he had killed all the scavengers. Negan descended and questioned Simon about the mission's outcome. Simon gives a vague answer. Simon notices that Negan's face doesn't look good and immediately changes the subject to ask what's going on. Negan informed Simon that Gavin still hadn't returned, suggesting something might have gone wrong. With that, they went to the cargo box, which was full of supplies from the dump. Negan doesn't even look at it and asks Simon for details of his trip to find the scavengers. Simon said, calmly, that it was just a normal door-to-door warning. They've only killed one person. The scavengers have shown that they have known remorse. Just as Negan was about to inquire further, another subordinate approached, reporting that Rick was requesting communication over the radio. Negan was a little surprised that this Rick guy would even think about contacting him. Right after, Negan picked up the walkie-talkie and headed towards a distant spot. Simon breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that Negan hadn't learned the truth. The consequences would have been dire.
Who the hell is asking?
That's Rick Grimes.
Ricky, look at you calling me up. You want to tell me where you are so we can do this face to face?
Carl's dead.
He wrote letters. He wrote one to you. He asked you to stop. He asked me to stop. He asked us.
But it's too late for that. Even if we wanted to deal now, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna kill you.
How did it happen?
What?
How did he die? Was it us? Was it the grenades?
Fire.
It wasn't you. Carl went out to help someone. And he got bit.
Upon hearing about Carl's death, Negan expressed genuine sorrow, saying, "I'm truly sorry, I really like that kid. I was ready to mold him, but you, as his father, caused his death. Why resist? Why make it harder? You just keep stirring the pot. How long until you realize that the reason I killed your friends was to save you? You're a failed leader and an even worse father, because you weren't there to stop him from doing something stupid. You've been saying you'll kill me, but we both know you can't. Give up." Rick. While they were having this conversation, Daryl was leading the group from Alexandria's safe zone towards the hilltop. They had been on the road for a night and were now resting and studying their route in a forest. Dwight suggested taking a route through a swamp, as Negan had previously studied the fastest way to the hilltop, which was abandoned due to its dangers. Daryl and Rosita are ready to take it on board, except for Tara, who is speechless. Tara said, "You're not really listening to Dwight, are you? Why listen to him when the route is so dangerous?" Tobin chimed in. "Why would they trust Dwight? What if Dwight betrayed them like he betrayed Savior?" Dwight replies that not only did he betray the Saviors, he killed of their men, which Daryl and Rosita both saw, but one of them escaped. So Negan will definitely kill Dwight if he catches him. Dwight wanted to help them take down Negan, and afterwards, they could kill him for Denise. Daryl and Rosita trust Dwight. Daryl and Rosita have both made mistakes by being reckless and won't let their personal feelings affect the team, so the group headed towards the swamp. After half an hour, Daryl signals them to stop because they're at the edge of the swamp. It's just like Dwight said. It's not easy to walk in, and there are even zombies in it. Daryl was preparing to clear a path, and the men behind him took out their knives and eagerly joined in. Dwight wanted to contribute but was outright refused by Daryl. Their backs had to be left to their own people. Rosita glanced at Tara and followed suit. The swamp looked calm on the surface, but there could be unknown dangers within. Everyone proceeded cautiously, aware that a misstep could lead to encountering submerged zombies. Luckily, we are all experienced in battle, so if we are careful, there should be no problem. Daryl and Siddiq had just made their way through the bushes when over a dozen zombies emerged from the water ahead of them. Knowing they had to clear the area to reach the other side, they braced themselves and moved forward. Luckily, these zombies can't move inside now. They just need to be killed one by one. Tara, who stayed in the woods, looked around and had an idea in her mind. Although Dwight is assisting them, Tara still hates him due to Denise's death. They head into the woods. Tara keeps looking back, not knowing what she's looking at. Dwight spoke to Tara, apologizing sincerely for Denise's death, acknowledging he didn't expect her forgiveness. Feeling undeserving of it, Dwight walks up and kills the zombie. However, when he turned around, he found Tara pointing a gun at him. Tara didn't accept the apology, and the only reason she didn't go to the swamp was to get her revenge. Dwight runs as fast as he can. He can't die now, at least not until Negan dies before him. After a while, Dwight was exhausted, his gunshot wound throbbing with pain. Tara caught up to Dwight, and he implored her not to kill him now. Suddenly, voices carried over. They quickly hid in the nearby underbrush, realizing it was a team from the Saviors, likely searching for them. Tara's first thought is that Dwight brought them here on purpose. She aimed her gun at Dwight, warning him not to speak. Dwight questioned with confusion whether Laura had returned or not, referring to the woman who had escaped. Tara aimed her gun towards the outside, ready to fire if they got closer. Seeing that they are about to be discovered, Dwight rushes out. Dwight wants to sacrifice himself to attract the Savior's attention, but from their conversation, they don't seem to know that he is a traitor. Confused, Dwight asks if Laura has gone back, the woman who escaped. They shake their heads regretfully and say that no one has seen Laura again. Dwight was relieved. The woman must have died out there. Tara listens to their conversation, and if Dwight betrays them, she'll be the first to shoot. But from the looks of it, Dwight was genuinely trying to help them, and he'd taken the Saviors far away from here. Tara realizes she's been reckless and is about to go back when Rosita is watching her from behind. Rosita had seen through Tara's intentions, just as she had acted recklessly before. Rosita had followed them to ensure Tara's safety.
I told you to wait! Negan could be on his way here right now!
He isn't.
For all we know, he could be telling them everything!
He won't. He led them away. They were coming right for it.
She's right, he did. I saw it.
And he saved us.
When I find that son of a bitch, I'm gonna...
Daryl saw Judith, frightened, in Tobin's arms, prompting him to restrain his anger. Daryl instructed everyone to move forward. Another hour later, they finally arrived at the hilltop and Carol came out to greet them with a smile on her face. They were alive. However, upon noticing Daryl's grim expression and the absence of certain members in the group, Carol quickly grasped what had happened. Daryl tells them what happened to Carl. Enid couldn't take it, and crouched on the ground, crying. By now everyone from the three communities were gathered here and the war with the Saviors could start any time, but they're still waiting for someone who can develop tactics and direct them.
Open the gates!